English 6. Quarter 3, Module 2, Lesson 2. Evaluating narratives based on how the author developed the elements, plot, chronological sequential, and medias res, and flashback. At the end of this module, you are expected to 1. Evaluate narratives based on how the author developed the plot, and 2. Answer activities based on the narratives read. Identify the elements of narratives described in each statement. Write the letter of the correct answer in your answer sheet. 1. It is the element of a story that talks about the events. A. Character. B. Setting. C. Plot. D. Conflict. 2. The events that may appear through dreams or memories of the character to create a background of the present situation, place or person is called blank. A. In medias res. B. Sequence. C. Chronological. D. Flashback. 3. It refers to another story that is narrated in the middle of a story. A. Sequence. B. Flashback. C. In medias res. D. Chronological. 4. It is the element that refers to the most exciting part of the story. A. Rising action. B. Falling action. C. Climax. D. Resolution. 5. It is a person or an animal that takes part in the action of a story. A. Plot. B. Character. C. Conflict. D. Setting. 6. Once upon a time, in a beautiful castle in the middle of the forest there was a princess who lived. The underlined phrase is an example of blank. A. Conflict. B. Character. C. Plot. D. Setting. 7. In the pale morning light, Jillian waved as father pushed their small boat off from the dock. The characters are blank. A. Pale morning. B. Small boat. C. Jillian and father. D. From the dock. 8. In a fairy tale, this is when the characters live happily ever after. A. Exposition. B. Resolution. C. Falling action. D. Rising action. 9. The boy who was lost for a long time was finally found. This event is the blank of the plot. A. Falling action. B. Climax. C. Resolution. D. Rising action. 10. Charlie is in grade 6 and an outstanding pupil since he was in grade 1 because he is a very studious boy. This is an example of blank. A. Exposition. B. Falling action. C. Climax. D. Rising action. Lesson 2. Evaluating narratives based on how the author developed the elements. Plot, chronological-sequential, and medias res, and flashback. The plot is one of the elements of a narrative. It consists of several events. The events tell the action and the conflict that leads to its climax and conclusion. It is the storyline plan or scheme. By identifying and understanding the plot, the reader is able to understand the message being conveyed by the author, and the explicit or implicit moral of the story. Directions: read the 2 fictional passages. Then, sort the underlined words and phrases into the correct column of the chart in your answer sheet. Passage A. The dictionary kid. Caden knew how to spell big words, and he knew what the words meant. When he took the vocabulary test in class last week, he was the first kid in the class to finish. He turned it in quickly and didn't check his work. When the teacher told him his grade, Caden's face turned bright red. He had failed. She told him that he could retake it. Caden took his time and checked his work. When the teacher gave him his grade, it was a perfect score, just like he wanted. Characters. Setting. Problem. Solution. Passage B. The fastest rider in town. Alicia was the fastest bike rider in town. No one could beat her in the race. She won every trophy. But one day, Alicia was riding at the park. She was speeding on the trail, and she put her head back to feel the wind on her face. Just then, her front tire hit a rock and her bike began to wobble. Alicia fell off her bike and landed on the sidewalk. Her knees were scraped and her elbow was hurt. Her friend helped her back on the bike, and they rode slowly and safely out of the park. Characters. Setting. Problem. Solution. Before reading the story, match the meanings in column B with the words on column A. Write the letter of the correct answer in your answer sheet. Column A. 1. Ancient. 2. Weary. 3. Ramped up. 4. Paul. 5. Wander. 6. Condemned. 7. Moaned. 8. Relieved. Column B. A. The foot of an animal that has claws. B. Lacking strength, energy or freshness because of need for rest or sleep. C. To stand or advance menacingly with 4 legs or with arms raised. D. Something very common. E. Very old, having lived or existed for a very long time. F. To reduce pain or an unpleasant feeling. G. A long, low sound because of pain. H. To give a severe punishment. I. To move around or go to different places usually without having a particular purpose or direction. Read the story of Androcles and the lion. Then, answer the questions that follow in your answer sheet. Androcles and the lion. Aesop. A slave named Androcles once escaped from his master and fled to the forest. As he was wandering about there he came upon a lion lying down moaning and groaning. At first, he turned to flee, but finding that the lion did not pursue him, he turned back and went up to him. As he came near, the lion put out his paw, which was swollen and bleeding, and Androcles found that a huge thorn had got into it, and was causing all the pain. He pulled out the thorn and bound up the paw of the lion, who was soon able to rise and lick the hand of Androcles like a dog. Then the lion took Androcles to his cave, and every day was used to bring him meat from which to live. But shortly afterwards, both Androcles and the lion were captured, and the slave was sentenced to be thrown to the lion, after the latter had been kept without food for several days. The emperor and all his court came to see the spectacle, and Androcles was led out into the center of the arena. Soon the lion was let loose from his den and rushed bounding and roaring towards his victim. But as soon as he came near to Androcles he recognized his friend, and fawned upon him, and licked his hands like a friendly dog. The emperor, surprised at this, summoned Androcles to him, who told him the whole story. Whereupon the slave was pardoned and freed, and the lion let loose to his native forest. 1. Who among the following is not a main character in the story? A. Aesop. B. Androcles. C. Emperor. D. Lion. 2. He was a slave sentenced to be thrown to the lion's den. A. Aesop. B. Androcles. C. Emperor. D. Soldier. 3. What happened to the lion when Androcles found him in the forest? A. He was sleeping very soundly. B. He was chasing small animals. C. His paw was swollen and bleeding. D. He was hiding from the hunters. 4. Which of the following did the lion not do after he was released from the den? A. He recognized and fawned upon Androcles. B. He licked Androcles' hands like a friendly dog. C. He attacked Androcles and injured him badly. D. He rushed bounding and roaring towards Androcles. 5. From the story, Androcles and the Lion, Which of the following events did the characters not go through as the story unfolded? A. Androcles was sentenced to be thrown to the lion. B. The emperor's soldiers found Androcles and the lion. C. Androcles and the lion were forced to fight each other. D. Androcles escaped from his master and fled to the forest where he met a wounded lion. Plot is the order of events that make up a story. The plot of a story is a series of interconnected events in which every occurrence has a specific purpose. A plot is all about establishing connections, suggesting causes, and showing relationships. It is the storyline plan or scheme. A plot may be presented through literary devices such as the following. 1. Chronological-sequential arrangement of events. This is the normal way as shown by the story mountain. Climax shows the highest point of interest, suspense and turning point of the story. Rising action introduces and develops conflict, main problem faced by the characters. Falling action shows how the characters solve the problem, conflict or ties up loose ends. Exposition provides background information, setting and information about the characters. Resolution shows how things end up in the story.
2. In medias res. This is a Latin phrase which means into the middle of things. Unlike the direct narration pattern of story events, another related story is narrated inside the main plotline. It is narrating from the midpoint rather than the beginning, usually opening with the dramatic action rather than the exposition.
3. Flashback. This device presents to the reader all or most of the events that have taken place before the events that are currently unfolding in the story. The events may be past narratives by characters of their dreams or memories to create a background to the present situation, place or person. These may be placed at the beginning or may be inserted into the normal chronological order. Arrange the events in the story Androcles and the lion based on how they happened. Write letters A, J in the box. Do this in your answer sheet. 1. Androcles saw a great big thorn pressed into the lion's paw, which was the cause of all its pain. 2. The emperor of Rome gave the signal for the lion to come out and attack Androcles. 3. The lion didn't attack Androcles. 4. One day, the emperor's soldiers came marching through the forest, and found Androcles and the lion. 5. The emperor pardoned Androcles after knowing what happened in the forest. 6. A slave named Androcles escaped from his master and fled to the forest. 7. It was the custom of the kingdom to throw criminals to the lions. 8. The lion found such relief from the thorn and was truly thankful to Androcles. 9. Androcles heard a lion near him moaning and groaning and at times roaring terribly. 10. Androcles seized hold of the thorn and drew it out of the lion's paw. Identify what element of the story is described below. Choose your answer from the words inside the box. Write your answer in your answer sheet. Narrator, flashback, climax, characters, setting, mood, chronological, plot, protagonist, resolution. 1. The main character in the story. 2. A narrative passage that takes the reader back in time. 3. People who take part in the story. 4. The one who tells the story. 5. The most important event in the story. 6. Events that build up in the story. 7. Shows how the story ends. 8. The feeling the story creates to the reader. 9. Gives information about when and where the story happened. 10. Refers to the arrangement of events. Complete the graphic organizer about the story Androcles and the Lion in your answer sheet. Title, characters, setting, events.
Identify the type of plot used in the following narratives. Write C for chronological, E for and medias res, and F for flashback. Do this in your answer sheet. 1. The life and death of a star begins somewhere in space. Astronomers claim that a star begins as a cloud of hydrogen and helium. As the cloud moves about, it collects bits of dust and more floating gases. Then the cloud begins to warm as more dust and gases are pulled into it. After a long period of time, as the cloud becomes denser, heat and friction cause the atoms to explode. That is how a star is born. The star will burn for about 10 billion years as it radiates heat and energy. When the hydrogen begins to burn out, the star becomes even larger. At this stage, it gives off a lot of light but not much energy. The star may continue to burn brightly but dies when it runs out of hydrogen. This is the life cycle of a star. 2. This morning was crazy. My alarm clock was set for 6 p.m. instead of 6 a.m., so I woke up really late. I just threw on some clothes and ran out the door. I rode my bike as fast as I could and thought that I was going to be late for sure, but when I got there everyone was outside and there were fire trucks all lined up in front of the school. I guess somebody pulled the fire alarm before the class started. It worked out though, because nobody really noticed or minded that I was tardy. 3. We looked on, waiting patiently. There was nothing else to do till the end of the flood, but it was only after a long silence when he said in hesitating voice, "I suppose you fellows remember I did once turn freshwater sailor for a bit, that we knew we were fated, before the ebb began to run, to hear about one of Marlowe's inconclusive experiences." 4. A man is about to give a speech to a large audience on biology. Suddenly, he remembers playing with frogs and toads in his backyard as a curious child. He smiles at the memory, and then begins to speak to the audience about a new, groundbreaking finding about frogs. 5. Ow! Mike cried, yanking his index finger from the windowsill to his mouth. His other hand held tightly to a small but strangely heavy briefcase. "Would you keep a sit down?" hushed Eric, trying again to re-wedge the crowbar under the tightly sealed window. "You want to wake my parents?" The boys had returned several hours later than promised, and Eric's house key was nowhere to be found. They were both exhausted, grouchy, and desperate to take a look inside the case. Below are the main events of The Tortoise and the Hare. Identify where each component should belong on the plot diagram by placing its number in the circle. Do this in your answer sheet. 1. The race started with the hare in the lead. 2. The tortoise took the challenge and made the hare laugh. 3. The hare awoke and saw the tortoise near the finish line. 4. The tortoise won the race. 5. The hare bragged that he was the fastest animal around and had never been beaten in a race, challenging anyone to race him. 6. The hare couldn't catch up in time to win the race. 7. The hare said he'd beat him, dancing around all the way, but the tortoise took the challenge. 8. The hare decided to take a nap, while the tortoise plodded on and on. Choose one of the favorite fairy tales below. Then, complete the graphic organizer in your answer sheet.
Fill in the blanks to complete the statements in your answer sheet. 1. Blank is the arrangement of events that makes up a story. 2. The plot consists of several blank. 3. The plot may be presented in a form of blank, blank or through a blank. 4. The arrangement of events in a plot follows these sequence: blank, 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 blank. 5. The blank shows the most interesting part of the plot. 6. Blank gives the ending of the story. 7. Blank states the background information about the characters. 8. Blank is presented through a dream or a memory to create a background of the present situation of the story. 9. Another related story that is narrated inside the main plot is the blank. 10. Blank are the interpretations of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment. Write T if the statement is correct and F if it is incorrect. Do this in your answer sheet. 1. Plot is one of the essential elements in a story. 2. Plot refers to the place where the story happened. 3. One must read and understand the story to determine the plot of the story. 4. Another story can be found in the plot. 5. Plot tells about the different events in this story. 6. The most exciting part of the story is found in the plot. 7. Characters play important roles in the plot of the story. 8. The plot must be arranged in chronological order. 9. A story can be completed without a plot. 10. Identifying the sequence of events in a story means you can pinpoint its beginning, its middle, and its end. Identify the element of the story described in each statement. Choose the correct answer from the box and write the correct number in your answer sheet. 1. Exposition. 2. Rising action. 3. Climax. 4. Falling action. 5. Resolution. 6. En medias res. 7. Flashback. 1. The real owner of the dirty sweater eventually admitted that it was hers. 2. Mrs. Price put the dirty sweater on Rachel to shame her. 3. It happened in ancient times that a slave named Androcles escaped from his master and fled into the forest. 4. Plucking up courage, he seized hold of the thorn and drew it out of the lion's paw, who roared with pain when the thorn came out. 5. The Emperor of Rome was in the royal box that day and gave the signal for the lion to come out and attack Androcles. 6. Just then he heard a lion near him moaning, and groaning and at times roaring terribly. 7. The Emperor summoned Androcles to him. So, Androcles told the Emperor how the lion showed its gratitude for his having relieved it of the thorn. 8. Rachel remembered the look in her classmates' eyes as they ridiculed her in front of the class. 9. Thereupon, the Emperor pardoned Androcles and ordered his master to set him free. 10. The lion was taken back into the forest and enjoyed its freedom once more.
A. Seek the assistance of your parents, guardians, or other members of the family to arrange the events in your life. Number them 1-10. Do this in your answer sheet. Events in your life. When you were baptized. When you were born. When you started kindergarten. When you learned to walk. When you learned to read. When you celebrated your first birthday. When you had your first tooth. When you entered 6th grade. When you celebrated your 7th birthday. When you had your clear vision. B. What animal do you see? What do you think happened? Write a short paragraph about it.